Excellencies, Commissioner Simson, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really honored to welcome you today at the high-level event on the security and stability of the Ukrainian energy sector. In particular, it's my pleasure to welcome our distinguished speakers and panelists. Together, we show our solidarity with people of Ukraine in the time of war. In this time, it is more important than ever to come together to discuss common solutions to the joint challenges we face. The Russian aggression has highlighted our vulnerabilities when it comes to the security of energy supply and the necessity to cooperate closer together to make our energy system more resilient and accelerate the clean energy transition. This includes working together via institutions like Energy Community, which brings together the European Union and 9 contracting parties in pursuing energy and climate agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, today's conference is entirely devoted to finding effective and practical solutions to the energy challenges faced by Ukraine, which is a member of the Energy Committee since 2011, and what is more important, which is holding the presidency in 2022. The military aggression of the Russian Federation towards Ukraine has drastically affected the energy sector. Every day, Ukrainian people are facing the consequences of destroyed energy infrastructure and interruption of supply chains. 2 million people are currently left without electricity and heating. Lack of fuel to cover demand inside Ukraine and repair works under shelling are additional challenges the country faces these days. The gas transmission operator in Ukraine continues to fulfill all of its contractual obligations despite ongoing threats to its infrastructure and personnel. A significant number of gas distribution stations have been damaged and destroyed. They are constantly being repaired and customers connected back to the grid. Our greatest respect goes to those colleagues working in keeping the Ukrainian energy infrastructure functional amid these fierce circumstances. The recent synchronization of Ukrainian and Moldovan power system with the continental European grid improved the operational security of Ukrainian power system, in particular operation of the nuclear power plants, and opened the opportunity for improving the security of electricity supply in both Ukraine and Moldova in the nearest future. At the same time, the safe operation of Ukrainian power system remains at risk as part of the power facilities are under occupation. Energy infrastructure is badly damaged. Electricity consumption dropped by some 35%, and the electricity bill collection rate from existing customers is around 60%, according to the Ukrainian sources. The result is a huge liquidity gap that threatens the normal functioning of the energy system. While additional regulation might be justified in some cases, it should not threaten or reverse successfully implemented electricity markets so far. Commercial exchanges with the European Union member states could partially close liquidity gap on the electricity market. The launch of commercial exchanges and the respective timeline is subject of technical assessment by the transmission system operators from the continental Europe under the umbrella of the NSOE as one of the post-synchronization processes. The Energy Community Secretariat, however, remains committed to continue working with the Ukrainian energy regulator and other Ukrainian stakeholders in preparing the necessary actions to ensure efficient market integration by the time this becomes possible under the conditions of the trial synchronization. Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you that the energy community was created back in 2005 to assist countries after the breakup of former Yugoslavia, to help kickstart economic development and ensure social stability in the region by bringing much needed investment to reconstruct the energy sectors after the Yugoslav wars. This is still in our DNA. In response to the recent horrific events, the Energy Community Secretariat has swiftly put in place several instruments to help respond to the emergency needs of the Ukrainian energy sector. Firstly, the Secretariat established the Ukraine Support Task Force to help Ukraine in keeping the energy infrastructure functional in the current conditions of war. The task force coordinates donations of specialized equipment from energy sector stakeholders from all over the European Union and beyond, following the needs of the Ministry of Energy of Ukraine. The actions are closely coordinated with the European Union Civil Protection Mechanism and the Cabinet of Commissioner Simson. Thank you very much, Commissioner, for this cooperation. And I'm delighted to announce that the first delivery supplies, coordinated by the Energy Community Secretariat, has already arrived in Ukraine. And we are working right now together with our partners from Norway, Spain, Switzerland, Germany, Italy, France, UK, Sweden, Latvia, Netherlands on other supplies to come soon, I hope. Secondly, the task force also works with key stakeholders in the Southeast Europe region and beyond under the umbrella of the SIGAS initiative in order to identify potential diversification of gas supply routes. This work includes reaching to our neighboring countries to negotiate additional market access points. And these are the actions which are the follow-up of the Southern Gas Corridor Summit in Baku. Commissioner, you participated several weeks ago. Thirdly, upon request by the European Commission and in agreement with the Ministry of Ukraine, Minister of Energy of Ukraine, the Energy Community Secretariat has set up the legal framework for the Ukraine Energy Support Fund to counteract the impact of the Russian invasion. The fund will enable governments and international financial institutions to provide emergency financial support to the Ukrainian sector. I'm very glad to announce that, the first pledge to this fund has been announced on Friday, and we are very grateful for the government of Denmark for making the first donation just 3 days after the opening of the fund. Moreover, several Ukrainian energy experts have found temporary refuge in Vienna and continue to help their home country from the premises of the Energy Community Secretariat. And Commissioner, you had the chance to see this group of committed people who are still working for Ukraine and for the Ukrainian energy system from Vienna. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, today we have come together to discuss how to best join forces to meet Ukraine's immediate needs and prepare for what will be needed to rebuild its energy sector after war. We need to step up our efforts to help. The energy community is ready to play a greater role in the reconstruction of the Ukrainian energy sector and cooperate closer with donors and financial institutions with similar objectives. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings me to the point I'm welcoming the representative of the Ukrainian Presidency, Minister German Galushchenko, and I would like, German, give you the floor so that you can address this gathering on behalf of the Presidency of the energy community.
Thank you very much. Dear Commissioner Simson, dear Kadri, dear Mr. Lorkowski, Deputy Prime Minister, honorable participants of the event. For more than a month, and to be today's, we have 45 days of war in Ukraine. And all these days we have been struggling with invasion that Europe has not seen since World War II. Of course, it was an incredible challenge for all of us and for our infrastructure. We had to deal with the electricity network, gas transit and supply, nuclear security, hydropower plants protection, and so on, all at the same time. No single country in the world has such an experience, good or bad, which could be shared or used. No European country operated free electricity or gas market at the time of war. Nevertheless, the energy front has been operated since the first day of the military aggression. It was a midnight February 24 that Ukraine disconnected from the energy system of Russia and Belarus and began working in isolated mode with the view to further joining the EU energy system. We had been operated in this isolated mode for 21 days. As an urgent measure, we needed emergency connection with NSOE, and I am personally very grateful to Commissioner Kadri Simson for her personal involvement and support of this process. On March 16, connection to the NSOE took place. This is what we planned, and that's really what we wanted. According to the plans, this should have happened in 2023. But however, because of the Russian aggression against Ukraine, we have accelerated the accession process. And once again, thank you, dear partners, for this really strong support which you provided to us. Nevertheless, technical stability is only one side of the coin. The other side is the financial sustainability of the energy market. And as you just mentioned, since the beginning of the war, we saw decline both in consumption and in payments. The consumption fell by 35%, in payments something around by 60%. And the lack of liquidity, of course, may lead to the collapse and bankruptcy of the entire system. In these circumstances, we are doing our best to maintain the free electricity market. And let me remind that there are no provision on adaptation of the market model to the circumstances of war. And of course, we are thinking on several choices. First of all, of course, to support the market liquidity. We have already addressed the international financial institutions with the relevant requests and calculations. For instance, the deficit amount is something around 250 million euros per month. The second option require only viable solution for recovery. It is possibly only in case we allowed commercial external trade in meaningful volumes of electricity. Commercial exchange between Ukraine energy system and the EU energy system would allow swift repayment of the potential loans. So of course we are very interested in as quickly as possible to get this possibility for commercial exchange. That is very important for our market, and that is very important to support the liquidity, which now we see a very big lack of in the market. Of course, we do not want to change the market model, which you also mentioned right now, and revert to so-called hand-operated market. And it's not the question that it's difficult to implement, what we are really afraid of, that the restoration of the normal market would take time and really would take a lot of effort. It is important that Ukrainian energy system remains resilient. Even in time of war, the ministry and the regulator, the company, so we are working together 24/7 in coordinated manner. We have the necessary resources to provide consumers with a stable, uninterrupted power grid operation. In addition to the necessary resources and stability of the system, we have reserves that can be used as needed. All this gives us confidence in its further functioning. Another issue which I would like to bring to your attention once again, and that is really the issue which we discuss a lot with a lot of partners and international organizations, that's the issue of Russian nuclear terrorism. As of now, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant remains seized with up to 1,000 invaders and about 50 units of heavy equipment, which is on the station, and that is which creates really a lot of threats. We appeal to a lot of organizations, especially EIE, and I have personally met with Mr. Grossi when he was here in Kiev, not in Kiev, in South Ukrainian NPP, and we discussed a lot of issues concerning the nuclear terrorism, concerning the nuclear safety, and that is really very difficult times and very dangerous situations when the NPP is under occupation, and we had a lot of signals from there, from our people, what happened there, and that is really very dangerous. So a few days ago I have a chance to visit Chernobyl station and to see what was done by Russians there, and that is also, I really was shocked what I see, how they behave with the people, how they stole everything they can steal, and and even when they start digging the forest, which is influenced by the radiation. So that's a lot of issue, and that is all the issue of course, the nuclear safety. And that is really very important to raise this issue anywhere, to discuss, not to stop this topic on any international forums. During all this extremely difficult time, we have felt very strong support from our partners. We have been in regular contacts with representatives of the European Commission, international organization, United States, Britain, and many of our friends. We receive both political support and assistance with technical equipment, energy supplies, and of course, humanitarian aid. Another very important area of cooperation with our international partner is the reinforcements of sanctions against Russia. You also mentioned this issue. It is the energy sanctions that are very painful for the aggressor. And our goal is to make it impossible for Russia to get incomes from the energy sector and to finance the war against the Ukraine. We are grateful for EU sanctions, including the fifth package and the future coal embargo. We also appreciate the position on individual countries and companies on their own self-motivated restriction on the purchase of Russian oil and gas. I am convinced that only a full embargo on Russian energy resources will stop the financing of killing Ukrainian citizens, including innocent children. Unfortunately, the number of killed people increased every day. Special thanks for unprecedented support of the Ukrainian energy sector, especially the fund which was also mentioned right now. I am sincerely grateful to the European Commission, the Secretariat of the Energy Community, the Member States and their companies who support our recovery in solidarity. Thanks to you and the motivation of my colleagues, the energy front is holding strong. The energy front repulsed the aggressor. After our victory, of course, we will rebuild damaged lines and energy infrastructure destroyed by the enemy. We will implement the best world standards and practices, strengthen our resilience and energy security with ultimate respect to the principles of the European Green Deal. Before February 2014 and full-scale invasion on February 24, Ukraine was a beautiful, friendly, and welcoming country. With your support, we will build it back. Glory to Ukraine.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your introductory words, and thank you for your assessment of the situation and the very clear picture of that what would be needed for Ukraine as immediate actions to be taken by the external partners. Now I would like to invite Commissioner you to take the floor and share with us the vision from the side of the European Commission.
Thank you, and I will do so. But first of all, thank you, German, for your intervention. This is really highly appreciated. These are extraordinary times. Well, Ukrainians are fighting heroically for their freedom, and the rest of us, we have to do our utmost so that Ukraine can prevail. And there has been not a single meeting in my agenda since 24th of February where I have not asked this from my counterpart, what can we do? Because Ukraine is part of European family, and us Europeans, we have to support Ukraine. I have been in constant contact with Minister German Galushchenko and his team, and we have discussed the security of supply and nuclear safety issues almost every time when we have these meetings between us. And I truly believe that everybody has a ability to support based on your own competencies. And in this regard, in the short term, we have to do our utmost so that supplies needed for Ukraine will be delivered. And this security of supply is top of our list. So far, we know that both the power and gas infrastructures operate steadily, and the electricity generation in the country is under Ukrainian control, and we should take a moment to appreciate this extraordinary achievement. To operate electricity supplies in such a stable way despite Russian invasion and constant attacks on Ukrainian grid infrastructure is something we should all admire. And it is thanks to the effort of the Ukrainian engineers and the technicians who, despite the danger, ensure constant energy supplies to millions of people in Ukraine. Our work at the Commission focuses on supplying the specialized energy equipment that has been damaged by Russian invasion. And most recently, the EU has offered Ukraine over 500 energy generators, and I'm very proud that my own native Estonia provided 330 of them. So we are also helping with fuel supplies, which are crucial to ensure that agricultural season can start also this spring. And I would like to sincerely thank the energy community who is working hand in hand with the European Commission to help the Ukraine. So the leadership of the energy community and your leadership, Artur, this has been a very much needed right now. And this is really making a difference. Importantly, we have to also concentrate for our future cooperation. We know that European continental grid is now synchronized with Ukraine, and this is an historical achievement. But from now on, our energy integration and exchange can only grow stronger. So the commercial flows between Ukraine and Poland are already possible, but this is an exemption. But very necessary step towards right direction, and now we have to continue our work to move further. But I know this takes time, but I'm putting my political support behind moving steadily towards this end goal. Ukraine has vast electricity potential. This vast potential could be used also in the way that both of us will benefit as commercial partners. And of course, from our side, the other important priority is to secure gas flows from west to east if they are needed. This flow, reverse flow, is possible, and my task is to ensure that they are there if necessary. And of course, we are thinking about the future, how we can decarbonize our energy portfolio so that we are not dependent on the imports. To do that, we have to diversify our supply routes, but our main task is to decarbonize our portfolio in the way that we are not dependent on any fossil fuel producer. And that means that the countries who can produce renewables could also be our trading partners in this regard. And as you know, in our strategies, we have always mentioned Ukraine as a potential partner in renewable sector. So I do believe that with Ukraine we will have joint future and mutual cooperation, and we will have a vast commercial exchanges. So my strong support to the energy sector will continue, and if we have achieved one task that helps us to support Ukraine, then the next question is, what now? What else can we do? This is a continuous work until the war is over, and then the work starts again to support the process that helps you to restore your economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Ukraine is a member de facto of the European Union in energy, having certified TSO, both in gas and electricity, now after the synchronization. But the other sectors are to catch up, I would say, and this is the reason why issue of membership is being right now on the agenda, with the questionnaire being delivered to the Ukrainian authorities by the President of the European Commission. And in that context, I would like to invite our next guest, who is the Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic integration of Ukraine, Olga Stefanishina. Minister Olga Stefanishina, I hope, Deputy Prime Minister, you are with us. So the floor is yours.
Yes, I'm
please.
with you, and I see you all. Do you hear me? Do you see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And first and foremost, to our Minister of Energy, German Galushchenko, who has been a true hero throughout all of the period of this invasion and before. It's very important that whenever we're talking about further integration and the markets integration, we take into account the understanding that the fast track we're going through is only possible because of the reforms which has been conducted by our government throughout these years, and the very complicated decision taken then by minister to proceed with the isolated regime and to deliver all of the necessary results within 24 hours. This has been a magnificent sign of bravery, the bravery reflecting the bravery of all our people resisting now. But moreover, for us, it was very important that the technical synchronization has been taking place, not only based on the successes Ukraine has managed to show, but this has been a very serious political decision. And in these times of war, where Ukraine is suffering enormously with the economic losses in the infrastructure, for us it's really important that the leaders show true leadership. And here is my gratitude also to German and to Kadri Simson. You have been also a strong advocate for everything which is now happening in our country. Of course, there are like many needs which has already been identified by ministers, but there is like ultimate needs to make sure that we survive in our economy and our basic critical infrastructure survive throughout the period of war. And we are proceeding with full synchronization, including commercial synchronization, as soon as possible. That's why I'm really grateful that today we have this unique venue which will allow us to mobilize necessary support and assistance in that regard. And I hope that it will be speedy, timely, and relevant to our needs. I wanted also to address two very specific points. First of all, as in June, we are expecting for the summit of the EU leaders an expected decision on the candidate status. It is very important to recognize already the fact that has been just loudly and clear outlined by a president of the energy community, that Ukraine is already part of European Union in the sense of energy markets. The other important and very substantial element for us is the mobilization of financing to the recovery of those parts of Ukraine which has already been, where Ukraine has already regained the control over territories. You've all seen the horrible war crimes committed in the areas of around Kiev, in Borodyanka, Makariv, Irpin, and Bucha, and this is the area when the recovery should start immediately without even waiting for this war is over, because people really want to go back to their homes. And the message from our side is that we, in that regard, remain committed to our Green Deal agenda, to our green recovery in these regions. And I wanted to bring it to your attention that the number of issues and initiatives could be implemented right now when we are considering the plans how to restore the basic critical infrastructure in this time in these towns, restoring the electricity supplies, the gas supplies, and making sure that we are rebuilding back Ukraine immediately without waiting until the war is over, as soon as the security conditions are met, which means that the process of bringing back the reforms agenda to Ukraine is very gradual. It is not now covering all the elements of Ukrainian territory, but whenever we gain back the control over territory, we restore it based on our common obligations, common visions, and in a spirit of those transformations we have been before the war started. I would complete with that, just not to repeat the messages from the minister, but I would also want to call to a very specific role of energy community in terms of the diversification of the gas market supplies. And it's really important now when European Union is at the stage of the new wave of sanctions, and the full embargo of trade in gas and oil with Russia is one of the most complicated questions. But I just call to all of the leaders and facilitation of the energy community in that regard, and the European Commission in understanding that while the leaders are thinking how to lose less money in introduction of these sanctions. We're paying with the lives of our people through that. So I'm sure that the Commission, together with the partners like Ukraine and the energy community, will find the way to make sure that the price for the deserts in our territory is as high as possible. And it might lead to some minor losses in economic wage in your countries, but I hope this will be and also as political as a sign of leadership, which will be shown by European leaders. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister, for your contribution. Poland plays a central role in supplying Ukraine both in fuels and with the equipment needed, not just because of the fact that the Polish logistics centers are being used by the external donors for organizing this support. That is the reason why I would like to invite Adam Guibourge-Czetwertyński, the Deputy Minister for Climate in Poland, to share with us the thoughts and approaches from Warsaw. Adam, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Artur, for the invitation. And I think as Kadri, as the Commissioner just said, very rightly, Ukraine is indeed fighting now, not fighting just for itself. Ukraine is fighting for our freedom. And the very least we can do is do everything we can to support Ukraine. And this is what we are willing to do as a government in Poland and also as the European Union to support you in this effort. I think if we want to be effectively trying to put an end to this war, what we can do on our side is implement sanctions, effective sanctions. We've been advocating that from the very early days in this war. As Poland, we have passed a law in our lower house last week to put an embargo on coal imports. Very happy that the EU has also adopted this week this same rule. I'm very happy to hear also good messages coming from the Commission regarding oil and regarding other energy carriers. I think this is indeed what we need to do to end this war. But that's not all what we have to do at EU level. We're also working hard on diversification. I understand that many member states may have some fears connected with the implementation of such sanctions, and the best way to address them is to have alternatives, and this is why these investments in diversifications, which we have been conducting for years already. For instance, we are building as Poland an interconnector with the help of the Connecting Europe facility between Poland and Slovakia. We are building another interconnector between Poland and Lithuania. But investment in further LNG terminals will be key to be able to deliver gas to Central European member states through alternative routes. We will have to invest also heavily in renewables and from this perspective to make also our legislation at EU level easier to allow for these investments, not only in energy production itself, but also in all the accompanying investments in the grids, in all the infrastructure that we need to support the development of renewables. We will also have to make sure that if we want to reduce the importance of Russian fossil fuels in our mix, that the alternative path we will take to reach our climate neutrality objective, because that remains the objective for the EU for 2050, that this alternative path will be possible. And if necessary, we will have to adapt our framework to that extent. When it comes to concrete support to Ukraine, beyond sanction, and it was referred already. We have been providing support as Poland, and also challenging efforts by other member states, and I'm very glad this number of member states willing to help with equipment, with fuels, is growing, and we've been answering to these calls from the Ukrainian administration to provide the exact equipment that is being necessary at this point. It was also the huge efforts that we made as the EU with all our TSOs to ensure the very quick synchronization of Ukraine after the successful exercise in island mode at the very beginning of the war. I'm very happy also that these efforts, both technical but also diplomatic, were successful. And as was hinted by also Deputy Prime Minister just before me, I think we will also want to support Ukraine after this war in the reconstruction of the country, of the energy system, and we will want to be there also when this time comes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your words. Now I would like to skip to our next speaker, Torsten, representing the support group Ukraine, the institution who has been meant to play completely different role as it's playing now. But I think still this is the role of the utmost importance for coordinating the European Union support for Ukraine. So Torsten, be invited to share with us the activities which are being performed by the European Commission under the umbrella of the support group for Ukraine.
Yeah, thank you very much, Artur. And also thank you very much for inviting and having this very timely event today. First, I would like to give the best regards of Katerina Matanova, who was planning to be here with you now instead of me. But unfortunately, she cannot join because she is in hospital, and she hopes to be with you soon. One thing which we have, of course, done so immediately after the war, we had to change our support to Ukraine, also in the energy sector. And a couple of these points have already been mentioned. One immediate success was, of course, that we all supported Ukraine's island mode test in the electricity sector, and also the connection to the NSOE grid. So I think this is, first of all, an achievement of the Ukrainian energy workers, who really are brave and work relentlessly to keep the system stable under wartime conditions. And I really would like to thank all of them and give also my appreciation to the people in Ukrenergo, but also in the power plants, but also gas TSO, which we haven't talked so much about. So all the system is stable because of all these thousands and thousands of workers. But also we have contributed in the diplomatic field, in the technical field, and it is a fantastic example of great European teamwork, go beyond simple institutions and also going beyond, let's say, preset frameworks. And this is exactly what I think this spirit is important also when we talk about the next steps, when we think about how to end this war as fast as possible. And we have already mentioned the question of sanctions, but also how to rebuild our energy system, not only in Ukraine, first of all, of course, in Ukraine, but also in the common European sense, to make it more resilient, to make it less prone to manipulation. And we have started in the European Commission a couple of initiatives on this, and the Commissioner is, of course, very much in the lead on this. One aspect which I would like to mention, which has not yet been mentioned, is that we have 2 weeks ago a decision by the European Council to set up a joint platform for purchasing gas, and that Ukraine, as other members of the Eastern Partnership association countries and the Western Balkan countries, are invited to join. And over the last days, I had a couple of talks with Ukrainian gas companies, and also we mentioned it with Yaroslav Demchenkov when he was in Brussels. I think this is a very good next step for promoting the further integration of our gas markets, which is already then taking us to a de facto like membership, as was already mentioned. So we don't have this opportunity only for electricity, and we have to work on this, but also for gas. And one question which is also very much in our mind is, how can we use the gas storage of Ukraine, the facilities that Ukraine has, to operate in the common sense for energy security in Europe, not only for Ukraine, but also in the whole region. So this will be an intense subject of our dialogue in the coming weeks. And I hope we can come to a conclusion where the European Union gas storage obligations can also partly be fulfilled by storing gas in Ukraine, and to find the right way to make sure that this gas is reliably available. What I also like to stress is the very proactive role Energy Community Secretariat has played, and which helps not only with the emergent needs that we have discussed, fuel, equipment, and which is really critical, but also to help with thinking for the next steps. What are the damages that have already been caused? How can we have an implementing mechanism to assess them, but also then how to rebuild the system in a more effective and more efficient way? And I very much welcome that also experts, Ukrainian experts, are already working very closely with the Energy Community Secretariat on this, and we are definitely happy to support these efforts. This comes together, of course, with what we have also had as our dialogue on Green Deal issues. So we are very much engaged in the building back better, or the Green Deal logic, to make sure that the energy efficiency of the system is also increased, and that also we integrate our markets. For instance, we have talked before the full-scale invasion of the potential for green hydrogen and other renewable gases. This is something we would like to continue, and which we think has an immense potential for the common European market. Renewable energy was already mentioned. What I would also like to stress is that we are now in a unique situation where a lot of damage is caused to the energy system by the Russian invasion, but also where very concrete acts of occupation are done in the energy sector. When you think, for instance, about the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, there are now Russian civilian experts, Rosatom experts, who are de facto helping with the occupation of a nuclear power plant in the sovereign neighboring countries. So these kind of assessments we should do together, and we should also draw some consequences on that, because it is not acceptable that an occupation regime is being supported by companies, and the companies do not have any consequences of that. So that's certainly something we will like to discuss further, so that also the sanctions are targeted not only on the economic effect, but also as an example of completely unacceptable practices, including in the energy sector. So the European Commission has already provided financial support. So very soon, 120 million euros will be transferred to the Ukrainian budget. We are also in the discussions about another 600 million macro-financial assistance. So I will not bore you with the numbers. What is important that we have now with the Energy Trust Fund of the European of the Energy Community Secretariat, we have now a mechanism to do emergency coordination and emergency supplies, which is very much welcome. In the long run, we of course need to work on a larger scale and more, let's say, structured approach. And the European Council has given us a mandate for this with the Ukrainian Solidarity Trust Fund. And we will definitely work in this, let's say, pan-European spirit on setting this up and on helping Ukraine in rebuilding the energy system and the economy at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Torsten, especially for reminding us the importance of the initiatives that have been taken in the sector of gas, common purchases, or the issue of the storage and how to use the existing Ukrainian underground storage facilities for the in the framework of the integrated European market. Now I would turn to Minister Yaroslav Demchenkov. I can remember, Yaroslav, our meeting a few days after the war started. You've been appealing to the participants of this meeting for concrete actions, for concrete support from the international community. And now I hope you will give us more specific information on where this support is needed and what are the specific expectations of the ministry in terms of the assistance to be provided still.
Colleagues, more than 40 days of active invasion and war against ordinary Ukrainians, against humanity, freedom, and democracy. The infrastructure of Mariupol city has been destroyed by 90%. In Chernihiv, it's not far from Russia, 70% of infrastructure is destroyed. The situation is similar in many smaller settlements where active hostages took place. Ukraine critical energy infrastructure is suffering significant damages. For many days, around 1,500 towns and villages and millions of people left without electricity and more than 300,000 without gas. This means no heating, no water, no hot food. Imagine bombing, Russian troops, damages. You try to save your life in shelters, no electricity, no heating. And this is right now in Ukraine, such situation. Russia wants Europe to think that Russian energy is irreplaceable, but this is not the case. Europe can and should take a set up of action to make Russian energy unimportant. This is very important for us because we must stop this war. Not because of damages, but because of the cost of this war. This war cost a fortune for our country, lives of our people, civilians people, and we should stop this war. Putin received a lot of money from energy sector, and most of this money he takes from European consumers. We should stop, we must stop this war, not to use Russian fuels, not to use Russian fossil fuels, first of all. We should hold him accountable. Ukraine was raising the alarm about Russia's energy attack on Europe since the last summer. We told about Nord Stream 2. We told about your dependence, European dependence, Europe dependence on Russian fossil fuel, on Russian energy. And now we have not just only prices on your markets. We have war in our country. And as a country, our neighbor countries are waiting that Putin will not stop in Ukraine and will go and attack Poland, Baltic, Sweden, other countries. They are thinking about this. We should stop, must stop Putin immediately. Europe should meet these challenges with dignity and resolve. And here we feel solidarity. We think, as Minister has mentioned, and Vice Prime Minister Olga Stefanishina, we feel solidarity and support from European Commission and from the Energy Community Secretariat, and this is very important for us. But in these sad and tragic events and time for our country, we first of all have at least three important messages, points. First, stop using Russian energy as soon as possible, whatever possible. And this is must. Some types of fuels are easily replaceable now. We see that European business stop buying coal, oil, LNG. We see also a big opportunity to stop cooperation with Rosatom, stop buying Russians' nuclear fuels. We welcome such approaches conducted by businesses, and we welcome all initiatives conducted by different governments and European Commission. We think that we should very actively. The second, review plans for use of gas as a transition fuel. This is very important, and Commissioner Kadri Simson knows about this, that now is not the time to see at the gas as a transition fossil fuel, as a transition fuel. We should find another proper sources, such like green hydrogen, for example, and we should do this as soon as practical possible. Third, investing in balancing capacity in European countries. Before this war, we discussed with European Commission, with Energy Community, that our energy mix is quite green. 70% of energy mix is green. And we discussed how we will replace thermal power generation, coal-fired power generation with renewables. How we will develop the level of our energy, electricity storages. But it was in past. No, it is in future. We have plans how we will rebuild this economy, but we are waiting that in Europe you should also pay more attention on development balancing capacity, because such technology we will need in Ukraine in very short period of time also, because we will build new energy sector based on green transition principles, based on the principle of European Green Deal. And the last but not the least, start export of electricity from Ukraine. Financial stabilization, as Minister has mentioned, of the electricity market is a key factor of prevent economical and further physical collapse of Ukrainian power system and energy security in this particular region. It is necessary to speed up the commercial export of Ukraine's electricity. And this is very important, not just only for Ukraine, but for energy security of whole Europe. I would like also to see, as all of our partners from Ukraine, my colleagues, to see Europe and European Commission as a trusted partner. And we see your approaches, and this is very important that we have common understanding how we could support our country, how we could support this fighting against, by the way, one of the biggest army in the world. We have to be ready. We have to be ready to build new, rebuild and rethink new energy infrastructure. The key goal is to stage after war. We should, as Torsten has mentioned, provide assessment about all of the damages. We should arrange different groups and expert communications and rethink the future of energy sector based on the friendly energy sector and rebuild back better. Not the same, but better. This is very important for us. Now Ukrainian energy sector should become more environmentally friendly than was before the war. And prior to the war, Ukrainian demonstrated ambitious climate goals and increased installed capacity of renewable energy sources. As I have mentioned about our energy mix, 70% was and still is green. And Ukrainian will formulate a climate policy that will stimulate business to implement more resource-efficient technology. Energy efficiency, the first. This message will be implemented in Ukraine after the war, when we will rebuild our district heatings, when we will build our residential house, when we will rebuild our industries. And of course, very important for us also when we are talking about future, this is investment and financial support from international partners, because we will need affordable finance. And this is also very, very important for us. So I would like to summarize that, please, Europe, you should continue decarbonization. You should think more actively and act more actively about green transition. Not use fossil fuel from Russia, not support Russian energy sector, don't support Russian Kremlin propaganda, Putin's regime. Do this as soon as possible, and Ukraine will join you after this war, I hope, at the nearest future, very short future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, not only for your precise description of the needs and the expectations now, but also for the vision for the future, which I think it's of the utmost importance to ensure that the actions we are taking now would be very much in line with the future vision of Ukrainian energy system to come soon, I hope. Now let me move to the last speaker, and I would like welcome Anker Christensen, the Climate Ambassador representing the Ministry of Climate, Energy and Utilities of Denmark. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Director Lorkowski, and thank you for inviting me to say a few words on behalf of Denmark. And let me first of all express our sincere sympathy to our colleagues from Ukraine participating in today's discussion. You show immense bravery and strength on behalf of all of us in the efforts that you are undertaking on behalf of your country and of Europe. So our thoughts are with you and the people of Ukraine in these dark times. And let me also, before I come with a few very concrete steps that we are taking, just join Minister Demchenkov, but also Commissioner Simson in their focus on the Green Deal and the Fit for 55 package. Denmark last week led a group of EU member states from north, south, east and west, large and small, to express our urge to speed up the Fit for 55 negotiations as one of the pathways for EU to achieve energy independence of Russian fossil fuels and both tackle the climate crisis, address the Russian aggression and ensure a clean, reliable and cheap independent EU energy supply for the future. And we really agree with that thrust and do look forward to Ukraine joining us in that endeavor, because that is the only path forward, as we in the short term are looking for fossil solutions to get rid of the fossil from Russia. We do need to bear the medium and long term in mind as we work our way out of this the energy dimension of the crisis. Now, in terms of concrete tracks, let me mention very briefly 3 steps that we have pushed hard for. The first is the ask from Ukraine for help from Europe to secure and protect its energy system. And it's a clear priority to us to respond to this call for help and to help keep the energy system and the infrastructure of Ukraine operational. And that's why we've worked with the energy community and the European Commission to establish this pan-European mechanism called the Ukraine Energy Support Fund. It will function as a common entry point for EU countries, international organizations, as well as third countries to make donations in support of the Ukrainian energy system. And the donations will be used to purchase energy equipment, fuels for electricity production and heating, and provide other types of support for Ukrainian energy companies. And that's to ensure that all Ukrainians have access to basic services such as heating and electricity in these difficult times. And second, and thank you, Director Lorkowski, for your shout out to Denmark in your introductory remarks. We last week made the first donation of 4 million Danish crown to the fund. And that's part of our overall effort to strengthen Ukraine in the development of its energy system. And then just third, and that's more speaking to the post-war dimension already, but Denmark and Ukraine have been working together basically since the Russian invasion of the Crimea, actually, bilaterally to promoting the green transition by ensuring solutions for an independent and more sustainable energy sector in the Ukraine. And that includes strengthening the enabling environment for investments, assisting Ukraine in achieving goals for renewable energy, energy efficiency, and energy independence. And despite the war, we continue this cooperation. And we've actually set up a local project team in Lviv to continue this work and provide the support needed to keep the energy sector operational. So, Ukrainian colleagues, once this situation is stable again, we are committed to assist in the long-term restoration of your energy system. And in Europe, we stand together to help each other in times of need. So from the Danish side, we are trying to contribute as best as we can and hope that other countries and other organizations will use the new mechanism that we've worked hard to create to send their contribution. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your words, for the contribution to the fund. You have a long-standing tradition of ice breaking, and I hope that the example you set would enable others to follow this example and to contribute to the fund established by the Energy Committee Secretariat in cooperation with Commissioner. And thank you very much once again for the trust and for your readiness to contribute. Now I would like to open the floor for question, comments from the audience. Please, if you have any comment, any question, the floor is open for that. Dirk.
You mentioned ice breaking, so I'm not a Dane, but I'm happy to do that as well.
Maybe you will present to the audience, because maybe there is someone who don't know you.
Yeah, my name is Dirk Puschler. I'm Artur's deputy, so I guess he knows me, and most of other colleagues as well. I wanted to come back to something that was mentioned before, and that's the joint gas purchase. Based upon the conclusions by the European Council, this is something that for the first time, because that's the way how the conclusions were framed, for the first time would put the energy community contracting parties in the same situation, at the same starting point as the European Union member states. And this is a novum, because until now, energy community contracting parties were rather takers of policy than involved in shaping or developing it. So beyond the benefits that such a joint purchasing arrangement can make, both for the facilitation of buying alternative gas to Russian gas, but also to maybe being a counterparty to a monopolist on the side of Russia. It has these two interesting dimensions, and interesting is indeed that the energy community contracting parties would be involved from day one, and it's a question maybe to Commissioner Simson. Do you see that the governance for such a joint cooperation is already there, or how do you think that this can be developed, can be jointly developed in a new spirit of involving contracting parties, energy community countries, and European Union member states at the same time, in the same creating of something?
Thank you very much, Commissioner. If you would like to make comment on.
Well, a joint purchase on behalf of private enterprises is not something that the European Commission has accommodated and that we can take as a business that we do know. But I think that based on the contacts with our international partners who are expressing their willingness to support Europe, both the European Union member states but also our neighbors, in the way that they do produce fossil fuels, well, LNG or gas, and they are not willing to benefit from current situation here in Europe in the way that all the trade will be based on the TTF price, but instead this is a political gesture that they are increasing their production volumes and willing to agree the price that will be relatively affordable to our consumers in the years to come. So the network is still under the design, but we are doing our utmost to keep in focus that in these circumstances, well, we have to take care of our well, contracting parties, not only our own enterprises and households. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Do we have other questions? Yaroslav.
It's not a question, because previous you asked about our plans and about current situation. I just only would like to use this opportunity because here a lot of international partners, distinguished audience, just only to give you some messages regarding ongoing process, regarding your support and probably recovery plan. First of all, we should work with you more deeply and to give a good message and good support, proper support to support functioning of the state in wartime. Win this war, and Ukraine critical needs some financial support and macro-financial support, military and humanitarian assistance to stabilize the situation and win the war. And we really do appreciate commitment conducted by Energy Community Secretariat and first donor Denmark, and we really thank you, European Commission, for this special fund for emergency needs support of our energy sector. And this is really important for us that this fund will operated by European and by Energy Community Secretariat and funded by EU countries, contracting partners, I hope, also of Energy Community and other sponsors. This is very important for us because we have the list of emergency needs. This is really critical needs of our energy companies for support our people. We have quite long list of activities which should be conducted during this war to give electricity and heating provide electricity and heating to our consumers. The second very important activities which we will have, I hope, at the nearest futures, this is a recovery of the state of our country after peace. This is like we call recovery activities. And here we should focus first of all on joint development progress for region and different economy sectors with international partners. Government will present at the nearest future idea of a separate fund for support recovery of whole economy, and this is very important because we really will need funds, necessary funding resources for recovery of our economy. And the third, modernization of the state. They call this like rethink. This is very important for us. We want to modernize our institutions, infrastructure, and create incentives for rapid and unique economic development through, of course, investment, innovation, support for business, trade, and digitalization. And this is very important for us in energy sector to find proper way for increase our capacity of energy sector and to be able to provide affordable energy for our consumers and to be active player in whole energy markets in Europe, at least selling electricity and to have proper communication with proper business with other market players. And of course, for this particular period of time, we discuss our needs regarding different fuels, diesel fuels, gasoline, gas, also. So all players, all companies, energy companies in close communication with different international partners, and we really thank you so much for your support, for solidarity, and we believe that this first stage, win the war, we will do completely in a short period of time, and after this we will start recovery and rethinking of our energy sector and whole economy.
Thank you very much, Yaroslav. I think that your last intervention should perfectly serve as a summary of this meeting, because you've been very clear on that what is expected and that what is the plan of the government in terms of the post-war development of the energy sector of Ukraine. So let me also thank the Commissioner, Minister, all of the online participants for your thoughts, for sharing with us your comments and observations, how the international community could engage in helping Ukraine in dealing with the developments which are connected with the war and the Russian invasions since February this year. I'd like to thank you very much, all the participants, and special thank you to the audience for taking our invitation and for being with us tonight. So thank you very much.